Live, where news comes first. This is WECT News.
While the races for the president and governor are getting a lot of attention right now, there's one issue at the end of your ballot that has some voters divided. Good evening and thanks so much for staying up late with us tonight. I'm Daniela Hankey. WECT's Delaney Tarpley is here to break down that referendum for us. Delaney, this would change the state's constitution on the qualifications that you need to vote, and it's also causing some confusion for voters.
That's right, Daniela. The referendum says, quote, constitutional amendment will provide only a citizen of the United States who is 18 years of age and otherwise possessing the qualifications for voting shall be entitled to vote at any election in this state. Then there's the options to vote for this amendment and against. The ballot amendment comes from legislators in the state House and Senate, and it is creating some confusion because right now in Carolina to vote, you already have to be a citizen and you already have to be 18 years old. So some are wondering why we're voting on something that's technically already law. Well, the amendment just changes the wording by getting rid of the word naturalized, which is already in the state constitution, leaving the citizen and age requirements in. We reached out to each of the parties in New Hanover County for their take. New Hanover County Democratic Party Chair Jill Hopman said the following, quote, "The New Hanover County Democratic Party opposes the proposed constitutional amendment and strongly urges the public to vote against it. This is an ambiguous, unnecessary, and dangerous fear-mongering tactic by Republicans disguised as policy." She went on to say, quote, "Voter fraud, particularly by undocumented immigrants, is a myth, as countless studies have proven. Republicans should stop creating fake problems and instead tackle the litany of real ones that do exist, like affordable housing, public education, and climate change," end quote. Meanwhile, the chair of the Republican Party said he couldn't believe this amendment was controversial, and his party is advocating that people vote for that constitutional amendment. Chair Nevin Carr said the following, quote, "I'm hearing the Democrat Party is against this referendum. Unbelievable. You would think we could at least agree that strengthening voter protections for U.S. citizens is a good thing. On the other hand, if you are on a mission to fundamentally transform this country, I guess you need to fundamentally transform the electorate. For years, Democrats have been ushering in millions of unvetted migrants into our communities, and now they're telling us why," end quote. Now, again, that measure is going to be at the end of your ballot, and we will bring you the latest on the amendment on election night, which is November 5th. Delaney Tarpley, WECT News.